We're looking at the Predator up top, the MQ-1, and the MQ-9 down here. As you can see, the MQ-9 has various hardpoints. Now, this is something to note as well. You can see the hardpoints located in that area, but you can see two up there, two AGMs. And frankly speaking, the MQ-1 has a lesser capability, however, has a longer endurance, and it provides ISR. The MQ-9 provides ISR as well, but because of its increased payload, it's also able to provide a better CAS mission. If I can direct your attention towards the back, Lieutenant Wesley, raise your hand. He's with the 42nd Attack Squadron. He's a buddy of mine. We went to Intel school together. Also my current roommate. He works with Reapers primarily, and they have their own unique asset. And their mix, their mission intelligence coordinators have their own skill set as well that they utilize when they utilize this aircraft. Me with the 15th, I work with Predators only, and like most ops, we're working down in Afghanistan, and we're providing that pattern of life we're watching for guys, and we're providing overall ISR for our guys on the ground, which is important because we need to make sure that we get our guys home, which is the beauty about my job. I never really spoke to you about it, but what I love the most about my job is the fact that I can see the actual result of what I'm doing. I can see what's going on. I can see when we have a mission complete and our guys come home, and that's a good feeling for me. So, that being said, we're looking at long endurance op support, provides hot intel to supporting units because it's real time, yes?
In regards to the rotor wing aircraft, does the Air Force use a significant amount of rotor wing craft, or is that primarily the Army that uses them?
Well, it depends on the role that you're looking at. I mean, like, for example, we provide combat search and rescue, right? Now, our guys are very good at what they do, and we're going to utilize helos for that particular mission. In the event that we have a lot of guys that we need to pick up, we'll be using a lot more helos. Special ops are going to use more helos than most conventional Air Force units, so to speak. You know, I mean, like, again, it's going to be specific to the mission as well. I'm sorry, does that answer your question? Okay, cool. And again, ISR and CAS. CAS being like our ability to strike any enemy ground forces in the event that they're trying to attack our guys. Earlier, you were talking about communications with the satellite, right? Yes, sir. What's unique about our Reapers and our Predators is that they have both line of sight and beyond line of sight. In order to use line of sight, you use what's known as a KU-band satellite. Basically, you have different antenna receivers. You can't really see it in these images on the top and on the bottom of the aircraft. That's able to communicate with the satellite. Okay, so when my aircraft is downrange in Afghanistan and I'm flying around just kind of doing my own thing, and or the pilot, excuse me, because as a MiG, let me go caveat this real quick. As a MiG, we kind of backseat, but don't really backseat the aircrew. The aircrew is going to be the pilot and the sensor operator. The pilot sits on the left, the sensor operator sits on the right, and as the names imply, the pilot flies, and he also manages and basically is in charge of the entire crew in the mission. And the sensor operator is told where to look, how to look, and what to look for. And at the same time, I'm helping out with overall situational awareness, coordination, liaising with other agencies or other echelons just to see if we're looking at the right thing, if we're doing the right thing, if we're in the right place at the right time, and if we need to action this target, how we're going to action this target, and what do we do from there. So with that being said, overall, I kind of forgot how I got to that point, but talking about KU satellites, when the pilot gives a command, it's going to be hit up via satellite. It's going to go towards the satellite, bounce off the satellite, and hit down. The satellite's going to have a footprint. That footprint's going to basically be in the general vicinity of my aircraft. And once it hits that receiver, it's going to have a little bit of a delay, but it's going to move to what that does. As opposed to line of sight, which is literally like, if you were at Creech Air Force Base, for one, don't ever take pictures if you guys are there. Secondly, you'll see a lot of these RPAs flying around as long as the weather's clear. They have line of sight, so their aircraft is literally controlled in near real time. Vice the beyond line of sight, which is going to have a little bit of delay, but it's still just as effective and allows us to do our mission downrange. Does that answer your question about KU satellites?
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right. So again, remember these aircraft. These are important. Remember the differences because they do look alike. Big takeaway is that you're looking at the vertical stabilizers on the Reaper being that V-type going up, and the vertical stabilizers on the Predator having that V-type going down. There's also a lot of fun facts about the Predator, but I don't know if I can speak to that. If you ever get the chance to look at one, actually, yeah, that's my other caveat. If you guys ever want to come and check out a Predator or a Reaper, go through your chain of command and stuff, I got contacts at the maintenance squadron up at Creech that would love to give tours. And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't mind giving a tour to a ROTC detachment such as ours. Pressing on, we're going to talk about threats to aircraft very briefly. And here's a very general overview of threats to aircraft. You're looking at man pads, other aircraft, surface-to-air missile sites, as well as AAA. Starting with man pads. Now, this is a man-portable air defense system. It's highly effective, especially against more of your rotor aircraft. Anything that's kind of in the general vicinity. I mean, like I know, like you guys hear a lot about RPGs and such. RPGs are not man pads. That's a rocket-propelled grenade. A man pad has what's known as noticeable tracking. So the moment that it's fired, it's not going to just kind of like veer and stuff. It's going to be like all over the place, so to speak, until it gets to its said target. It's going to hit, again, low-flying, slow aircraft. This also includes aircraft that are landing. And they can be either IR or laser guided. I'm not going to be testing you guys on this stuff, so I'm going to kind of breeze through this. If you guys have any questions, by all means, ask me. Oh wait, you guys ever play Call of Duty? Anybody? You know how like you have like the Stinger or like the Javelin, and you're looking up at like a Pred and you're shooting it? First off, that doesn't happen. Secondly, there's no way. Like what was it? Black Ops. You're shooting like a U-2. A U-2 is way out of reach. Like the U-2, you can't even see the U-2. I don't even understand why it's like at freaking like 500 feet just chilling. It makes no sense. But yeah, so IR laser guided. Can anybody tell me a fun fact about infrared? What is infrared looking for? Heat signature. You said that? You said that. What about the heat signature? Okay, so you're talking about heat sources. You're talking about things that are emitting heat, right? That's a common misnomer. The term heat seeker is something that was, I guess, derived back in the day because what was looked at with the old school IR missiles is that as soon as it would shot, it would track to the hottest source, right? So engines, the sun, like anything that's going to be in that general vicinity that's going to help that seeker bite off on said heat signature. What you're looking at with IR is something called emissivity. Emissivity is ability for an object to absorb IR energy and release it, retain it, release it. Okay, so not a heat seeker because you ever see the movies where like there's a guy in a helicopter who's smoking a cigar and he's like, oh God, there's a Sidewinder or something like that. And he like throws the cigar and the Sidewinder's like, oh crap, right? No, doesn't happen. Same thing with these things. Furthermore, like you gotta have a pretty dang good arm because these things move at like Mach, like fast, straight up. Moving on to other aircraft, we already talked about fighter aircraft. Can anybody tell me what that fighter is in the back? First of all, what does that aircraft look like in our inventory? What does that look like? Who said it? Somebody said it here. Looks like an F-15, right. Okay, well, what is it?
MiG-33.
Try again. Ooh. Definitely not a MiG-33. Terrell.
It's a Su-27.
Awesome. Why?
Because it's Russian and it's an Su-27.
So MiGs aren't Russian? MiGs aren't Russian?
No, MiGs are Russian, but
Okay.
they have the MiGs and they got the Sus.
Okay, so you have the Niko Yangurovich and you have the Sukhois. What's interesting to note, you can't really see it in this image. Look between the two engines. What do you see? A little tail thing, right? We like to joke about it. We call it the flanker has the wanker. So that thing, that sticks out. Furthermore, you'll look at I'll show you a picture of a MiG in a bit. But when you look at the actual aircraft, this flanker here has very sharp edges to the wings. And the MiG-29 is going to have more rounded edges. So remember that, all right? Rounded edges versus very sharp edges. And furthermore, the MiG is more of a multi-role versus the Su-27, which is more of a air superiority. Going into the Su-33 and the Su-35, which is why there's no such thing as a MiG-33, because the MiGs don't go that high. They utilize countermeasures, like you're looking at flares, chaff. They also have air-to-air tactics and weapons. So I mean, like they can maneuver. These guys think for themselves. They're pilots too. You know, our pilots are the best in the world, but these guys are going to try and be good too. Can anybody tell me what the aircraft on the bottom is too? It's not an F-4? What is it?
F-4.
Okay. What country?
He's right.
Do you know what country flies the F-4?
Not currently.
Yes.
Anybody?
Pakistan.
Close. Not so much. All right, so back in the day, back in the day, we used to be friends with a particular country called Iran, and we gave them a bunch of our aircraft. Do you know the aircraft that we gave them?
Tomcat.
Say again?
The naval one, the F-14.
F-14, thank you. They use the Tomcat, and they also have the F-5. So these are just old school jets, but this is more FYSA. You're going to see our jets as Red Forces, if that makes sense. Not all of them, mind you, not all of them, but some of them will be. And I mean, like, that's where you got to distinguish. Like, look at that tail fin. I think that's an Iranian flag. Or it might say IR, IAF, or things some damage. It's relevant.
Back on the SU-27, do you know what the tail is that you were talking about? What is the purpose of it?
I believe I do. I don't know if I can talk about it. Yeah, it's kind of with its avionics is what it is, but
Yeah.
that's as far as I can speak to it. But yeah, anybody can tell me anything interesting about the F-4? Like, did it have a gun to begin with? Anybody know? No, exactly. Well, why was it that they didn't have a gun?
They were relying on rockets and missiles at the time, which were unreliable, and so the aircraft had a clear assessment of that.
But just for your information, the F-4 Phantom's my favorite jet. Moving on, we're looking at SAM sites. Surface-to-air missiles. Now, this is more of your strategic, or they can be tactical. Strategic meaning like your area point or area defense, and your tactical meaning that they can just kind of get up and move. They're best utilized against your high-altitude, long-endurance aircraft. That's initially what they're used for because back in the day, they figured that with Strategic Air Command that they'd have big old bombers coming up overhead, just dropping mayhem, right? And their idea was to have a missile system that would be able to splash them. Now, these are also effective, mind you, against other aircraft, i.e. fighters, attack aircraft, rotor wing aircraft, ISS, ISR. But essentially, their job is to basically clear the airspace. And they're going to have a specific area that they're going to defend, specific to each system. Can anybody tell me what the one is up top? Don't worry about it. I didn't even know either. This was an SA-20. The SA-20 is one of Russia's newest SAM sites, and it's very effective. Anybody know about the one at the bottom? That's okay too, because that's the IHOP. That was actually one of ours before we gave it to Iran. So again, like just things to kind of look at. You want to look at not just your aircraft because that's all well and good because we're Air Force and stuff, but we also need to understand our threats to our aircraft. What's going to affect our pilots that are flying? What's going to be our main threats? Intel dudes need to track on that, and everybody else needs to have that SA. That way we can kind of have that synergy going on and collaborating our minds like a kind of a mind meld. Moving on to AAA, anti-aircraft artillery. Now, this is more of an old school notion, but at the same time, like it still serves its purpose. It saturates the air with flak, which makes it difficult to fly because you have all this metal just ripping up at your aircraft. Again, it's best used against these like low altitude, low flying aircraft, and the reason why I say that is because it's an easier shot. If it's too high, some guns won't reach you, but if it's a little bit lower, it's definitely going to be able to hit. I'm not going to really talk too much about those two, but for your information, it's a ZBU-4. Usually the number is going to coordinate or relate to the number of barrels that it has. And,
Will flak do anything damaging to an A-10?
oh yeah, yeah. There's I mean like, the A-10 can take a lot of damage. But you gotta understand, like titanium or not, like the velocity at which the shell, the caliber of the shell is gonna put a hole in just about everything. Unless that thing is like impervious for whatever reason. But I mean like, the A-10 will take damage. Aircraft will take damage, period. And on the bottom, you have the Tunguska together, which is kind of like a ZSU-23-4, which is a mobile AAA site, or artillery piece. Okay, so with that being said, I just gave you guys a real quick rundown, a real down and dirty version of aircraft features, and you guys were able to spit back at me like what we're looking at, associated features. We're looking at, again, wings, engine, fuselage, and the overall tail. Real quick, as I asked earlier, if I was to black out those wireframes, would you guys be able to recognize them, right? So, on this side, somebody tell me what this aircraft is right here. Besides you. Besides you. Besides you. You and the glasses. Okay, well, talk me through. Talk to me about this. What do you notice?
It's on the back stabilizer are out.
Okay.
It's more of a triangular shape.
Okay.
That's all I got.
What about the engine? Talk to me about the engine.
It's in the very back. It's got a little tail thing going.
How many engines?
Just one.
One. Okay, do you think this is a Blue Force or a Red Force aircraft?
Blue.
Okay, so can you tell me any of our aircraft that has single engines that we like? Okay, that's fine. Can anybody tell me? Go ahead. That's affirmative. It's an F-16. Smaller design. It's that multi-role feel, and of course, like, it's a silhouette or it's a blacked out drawing. But I mean, like your general shape, that's what an F-16 is going to look like. The one in the middle, someone on this side. besides my pilots. You in the end.
Is it F-15?
Okay, it is. Why?
Two engines.
Uh-huh.
Two engines? In the front?
Oh, you're talking about the intakes in the front, 2 intakes in the back?
There you go.
Okay. And tell me about the wingspan, or the wings.
Or,
Well, compare it to the F-16.
oh, more out?
Yeah, it's larger, it's a little bit wider, it's a bigger wingspan. Good. One on the right, this side. You. Yes, why? The overall shape, right, has that kind of diamond, right? Good. Last one here on the bottom. Propeller.
No, back to that, that's an F-35.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, then I
The
stand corrected.
F-22 has two engines, and the engines are vectorizing nozzles. You can see it depicted on them.
Affirmative, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, because I thought you see how it has the two little triangle things? Are you tracking with me? Torello, you tracking? You see how the little two triangle things? That's why I was thinking F-22. Okay, well, I stand corrected, if that's what it is. I'm gonna leave it to you to say that's an F-35. Okay, F-35 landing, I stand corrected. A-10 is the one on the bottom. Somebody already said it, why? Huh? Yeah, exactly. That, of course, the larger wingspan. How many hard points? Don't count how many hard points, but does it have a little or a lot of hard points? A lot, quite a lot. It has one of the largest within our spread. Also, the tail is very unique as it has that kind of weird, old school, like, what is it, P-38 or something. I don't know. Either way it goes. Very unique tail. So, with that being said, let's talk associated features and talk to me about what you're looking at right here. Anybody? Before we get into that, why? Again, like, talk to me about associated features. Talk to me about the wing, engine, the fuselage, and the tail. Yes?
Wings are, they're straight through, they're not across like this per se.
You're talking about like the delta design?
Yeah.
That you're looking at? Okay. It has a near delta design, right? Obviously, you guys can count 2 engines, 2 tails, right? 2 vertical stabilizers. Talk to me about the intake.
Yeah.
This region right here.
It's great.
Does it have 1 or 2? Actually, that's 2, right? It has that kind of like that shape. That's affirmative. This is an F-15C. And again, like the reason why it's a C, as I hit earlier, anybody know it's a C model? You said it. One pilot. One pilot, right? What's the main role of the F-15C? Air superiority. God, what the? Okay. All right, well, as you can see, this is the Viper. So juxtaposition that with the F-15C, you can kind of see, if you will, the difference between the actual airframe. Smaller, agile, right? A little bit more compact, a little bit bigger payload. 2 engines, so it's much faster. But again, like, there you go. You can't see the intake, but it has a large intake layer.
Directly.
It's on the underside of the belly.
Affirmative. And what does it look like? Just a big
It's,
old.
it's like a half circle.
How come sometimes it's called a Viper and sometimes it's called a Falcon?
So this is actually something I had learned in Intel school. So the Fighting Falcon is the U.S. Air Force. But the fighter community, or the pilot community, decided to call it the Viper. The reason why was there was a show, that was a sci-fi show. Anyways, their aircraft that they used was called a Viper. But when they showed the cockpit of this Viper, it was the F-16s. And that's the reason why it's called the Viper. So it's more of a moniker than it is an actual, like, you know, again, Fighting Falcon should be what it is in the textbooks, or just Falcon, but for this case, we call it Viper. I had a lot of F-16 dudes, they always called it Viper. They're like, oh, you're a nerd, you called it Falcon. And I was like, oh, fine. You know? Home news, you know? But it's just, all right. Okay, what are we looking at here? Balakis, you answered this already, so don't answer. Nadorf.
Has a T shape in the back.
Very good.
It has 4 engines, which
Uh-huh.
is not C-130.
Who's this?
And then so it's a Galaxy. Oh, the wings are
Yeah, winglets. Winglets.
Words.
Yeah. I'm like, drive. And what's this? Yes, that's my point exactly. This is Hickam Air Force Base. And that's a rainbow, in case you've never seen one in your entire life. I've seen one every day of my life. It's pretty awesome. This is C-17. All right, what's this? That door, please stop. Somebody else. Kelsey.
It's a F-15
And then?
E,
Why?
2 pilots, there are two people in the cockpit.
Okay, if you didn't see the two people, if you didn't see the pilots, what are my other distinguishing features? I didn't talk to this yet, but I want to see if you can notice it.
The avionics pod.
Okay, maybe not that. Let's talk about the actual, not the pod, not the loadout, but the actual aircraft. Where's that?
Starker.
That's one. That is one. F-15Es are typically a dark gray. You see that? Like they said to us, like they're like, oh yeah, Bizrec, you can call it an F-15 dark gray, or an F-15 Shrek Eagle, or an F-15 light gray, or an F-15C. Yes.
The wingtips look a little bit rounded
Okay.
compared to the C. We came more to a point on the C.
Okay, talk to me a little bit more about the front of the aircraft. Anybody? Go for it.
There's more payload selection.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's another good thing to know as well. Like in the event that I did ask you about payload, you can see that it's holding bombs. F-15C is not going to hold a bomb. You're not going to drop a freaking 500-pound bomb on a MiG. That's going to it doesn't work like that. That'd be pretty awesome, I have to admit, but I mean, like, it's not going to work like that. Okay, well, to give it to you guys, here we have the intake, correct? What is this? Was that on the 15C? What that is a conformal fuel tank. So you have like your fuel tanks that you put underneath the aircraft itself. On the sides of the intake is what's called a conformal fuel tank. It's basically a fuel tank that conforms with the body, as the name states. If you ever look up an F-16 Block 60, I think the United Emirates, or Emirates, they have a Block 60 F-16. They have conformal fuel tanks as well, except they go on top. So when you look at the F-16, it looks very sleek, right? Like if I back up a little bit. With the Block 60, what you'll notice is that it's going to have these fuel tanks that run from the front to the back of the aircraft. And it makes it look kind of like, to me it looks like a snake. It's kind of cool. All right, so, striking. What's this? American, Russian, Chinese, Iranian, Russian, okay. I'll talk to you guys about this. There's two distinguishing features that will make this what it is and not what it's not. Right, Zach?
Has the more rounded wing, and then also the intakes slanted rather than blocked.
You'll notice that you're talking about the fairings right there. You'll notice that with that, it's kind of similar, but a little different on the Sukhoi. Look at the back.
The tail.
The tail. Does it have a wanker, so to speak? Exactly, it doesn't. This is a MiG-29 fulcrum. Again, the fulcrum has more of that, it doesn't have sharp edges to its wings, as you can see. Like when I show you a Sukhoi, you'll know it off the bat because it's like, oh shoot, it doesn't have rounded wings. Furthermore, if you actually look at the vertical stabilizers, if I had a more like a, I guess, level image, you'd see that it went up and rounded out on top as well. Whereas the Su-27 goes up, trims off. What's this? You see this every day or every Friday. This isn't the national anthem for your guest lecture. Anybody else?
AC-130.
AC-130, why?
It's got the gun sticking out outside.
Dang straight. This is an AC-130 Spectre. Now this is, what's unique about it?
It's a gunship.
Okay, what's it got you?
It's,
Is that a helicopter?
no, it's not. It's, well, it could be a helicopter gunship, but,
This one obviously not.
yes, it's just instead of dropping bombs or munitions, it has more conventional types of, such as this case, the cannons on the side.
And it's pretty devastating. Pretty cool frame. I have a buddy of mine when I was in Intel school. He was a C-130 pilot. Excuse me, navigator. He had some guys that flew this thing, and they're like, yeah, coolest thing ever. They shoot the gun, the whole frame rocks. And it's just like, yeah. But yeah, so Spectre. Again, I want you guys to note, all right? Note the engines. Talk to me about the engine. What's the general shape? Is it circular? Is it oblong? Is it square? Is it a triangle? Elliptical, oval, anything? Give me a adjective, yes.
Looks like an oval.
Okay, looks like an oval. Talk to me about the nose or the front end of this aircraft. Like, look at the cockpit. Has windows, obviously, right? What about the nose? It's solid. I know, like, these are very generic terms and stuff, but I mean, just kind of think of it this way, because the next aircraft I'm going to show you is this a C-130. Can you see why it looks like a C-130?
Say the nose.
Right, what about the nose?
Nose. There's no nose. No nose on the nose.
Right, because the C-130 here doesn't have that, right? Talk to me about the tail.
That was more. It looks kind of more slanted.
It does, right? Look at that. Look at that. It has that little spine that goes up to the vertical stabilizer. Talk to me about the engines. Circular, round, oval, triangle, square, hexagon, parallelogram. Anybody? It looks more circular, right? Everybody can agree on that? It looks a little more circular? Okay, well, yeah. Anyways, look at that, right? More oval. See the intake on the bottom? Whereas with this, it's more circular. And it doesn't really look like the engines at all. It's really a question.
Yeah, do you know what both of these planes have, the cables going from the front of the cockpit to the rear stabilizer, or the rear pulley?
Don't quote me on this. I gotta double check. I think it has something to do with the radar, is what it is. Like sometimes, for example, like submarines also utilize a similar cable in that sense. This is an AN-12 Cub. This is Russia's answer to the C-130 Hercules. What is this? What does it look like? Looks like an F-15, right? This aircraft, as well as the MiG-29, were built around the same time the F-15 came out because Russia was trying to get an answer to our Fighter X program, which was the F-15. What is this?
Is that the SU-27?
That's a flanker. As I said before, you can't really see it, but it does have this fairing here. Shine fairing, I think is what it's called. And of course, the engines are like a little bit far back of the aircraft. This is your air superiority. You guys familiar with the Cobra maneuver? Most of your SU-27 guys are able to pull that off, especially the newer models because of their thrust vectoring capabilities. There's more very unique things about this aircraft, but we'll save that for later. But as you can see, the tail, as well as the wings, have that straight look, right? Just straight, nothing really curvy. What is this? Anybody? Olson? A10. Yes, why?
Engines are in the back and they look like speakers.
Thank you for conforming to my
No problem, sir.
and yes, and other thing to note, GAL 8, right? What's unique about this weapon? Yes.
The entire aircraft is practically built around the 30mm cannon.
What else?
No, go.
In terms of tank, this was shoes. That's pretty much it. Like that, we'll just recap it. It is a damn good gun. A10 Thunderbolt or Warthog, whatever you want to call it. What's this? Somebody else. Somebody else. Somebody else. Glasses. Sorry, I don't know your name. What's your name? Manolay? No, what?
Let me see here.
Manolay. I'm sorry, I'm filthy else. All right. Go for it. What is that? Try again. Look at the vertical stabilizers. Look at the shape of the aircraft. Very sleek, right? Looks like it has more of a rhombus type of. I don't know my shapes. Lieutenant Commander, what's a good way to describe these intakes? Ooh. You're good with geometry, right? I'm very bad at this.
I would go with a, there you go.
Trapezoid. So that's trapezoidal learning. A trapezoidal. No, okay. Well, it has like kind of like a weird boxy looking, or a slanted box for an intake. You know. What is this? Again, we have a detail. You're looking at this more sleeker design. The aircraft itself has a little bit more of a diamond shape. this? Besides you, anybody else? Bad or?
It's Predator,
Okay, why?
because the V-shaped down,
Okay,
and there's less armaments, the 10Q9 has 4.
right, and Plaid. What else?
I think
Were you
that
paying
covers
attention?
it.
You were sleeping. I knew it.
I was not sleeping too. So, I just know from the wing at the bottom,
That's one of the most distinguishing features. Talk to me about the propeller.
it has one.
You can just leave. How many propeller blades are there on this craft?
One.
Blades
Wait.
on the...
Oh, 3?
The answer
Two?
is two.
Two?
Thank you. Whoever said that.
Yeah, that's like one from the picture.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, so again, vertical stabs go down and in a V. 2 propeller blades on the propeller itself. Limited armament. Overall smaller design, right? How about that?
MQ9 Reaver.
Yes. Yes, very good. Why?
Vertical stabilizers are facing upward.
Uh-huh.
It has 3 propeller blades. The
Yep.
intake on the rear is slightly larger than MQ9. It's overall larger and it has more park points.
Okay, talk to me about the armament that has right now. What is it loaded out with?
That would be JDAM, I would say Hellfire.
I can't see the Hellfire, but yeah, essentially those 2 that you see right there, those are JDAMs. Or well, those are just, yeah. 10s. 12. And Q9 reads. So, in summary, we went over web basics. Talk to me, what is web? Shout it out. Okay, what else are you looking for when you look at wing engine fuselage and tail? Shape, so shape, hard points, what am I alluding to? Associated points, you said that. Glasses. Yes. Yes, glasses, my boy. All right, cool, we talked about types of aircraft. Talk to me about the types of aircraft. What do we have? Fighters. Bombers, yes. Cargo, tankers, yes. Rudder, facing, exactly. ISR platforms, which are indeed very important. Thrust aircraft, I named 4. What am I named thrust aircraft? Samsung, AAA. They're fighters, right. And we went over a quick biz recce test. You guys did very well. I'm very glad that you guys are starting to pick up. Everybody feel pretty good about, like, yeah, I can kind of see where he's going with, like when I say wing engine, fuselage, tail, and associated points, like what we're looking at, why this aircraft is this and not that, right? You guys are not going to be experts based off of my lesson. You guys are going to become experts as you guys go about it. As Lieutenant Combato said, you need to do the best at what you need to be the best at what you do. You know, of course, like don't stop on anybody's toes, but I mean, like really take this time as future Air Force officers to really get